And I'm back. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we start with this. Welcome to the revolution. I don't think anybody can describe the last year as business as usual. I hope that you and yours are doing well and that you are finding a way to thrive in these crazy times. But we are living through a revolution. That adoption of things online accelerated by at least 5 years. The fact that we are connecting with each other in this way is revolutionary. The way people are buying things, working, living, engaging with the world. It's all a revolution. And what makes something a revolution? Revolutions destroy the perfect, and then they enable the impossible. It would have been impossible 10 years ago to describe life as we are living it today, whether it's the virtual thing or the pandemics and everything in between. But I want to start with destroying the perfect, because the place you worked 2 years ago, perfect. The systems that we were used to, the idea of a bookstore, the idea of a restaurant, perfect. What do I mean by perfect? Well, the name of this workshop, this whole day, is about game-changing innovation. And perfect means you're playing the game and winning well enough to get paid to play the game. And so we lived in a world that was perfect, the same way Western Union did when it was dominating the telegram business. And then Alexander Graham Bell shows up with the telephone. And suddenly he's created something that's impossible. And the people at Western Union had a chance to buy the telephone for almost nothing. When I was at Yahoo, we had a chance to buy Google for $10 million. Something impossible shows up. And the people who are in the business of dealing with perfect usually say no. So I want to start with the daring assertion that I'm not sure you want to change the game. I think that many people would like to get back to normal. The problem is you can't step in the same river twice. There's no going back to normal. This is normal. The next thing is normal. The whole idea that I can press a few keys and there's $1 trillion worth of value in Bitcoin online, that is now normal. The shifting in relationships and status roles and the way we've been indoctrinated, all of it is turning upside down. So the question we have to start with is, are you serious? Are you actually interested in changing the game? Or would you rather have someone change the game on you, and then you'll have to struggle to catch up? So what we haven't seen that I want to highlight for you is simple. We came up in an industrial economy. An industrial economy is one built on management. And management is not the same as leadership. Management is paying people and using your authority to tell them what to do. Management is making everything a little bit better, a little bit faster, and a little bit cheaper in a reliable way. We need managers. Fast food restaurants don't work without managers. But leadership is different. Leadership is voluntary. You can choose to lead and you can choose to follow. That's what makes it not management, is that we have voluntarily signed up to change the game. And the essence of leadership is it must be followed by the sentence, this might not work. Because if you're sure it's going to work, well, then go please manage. Go please manage. If you're sure that doing this action is going to cause that result, that's management. Leadership is exploring the edges. Leadership is this idea of finding problems and solving them. And one of the definitions of a problem is it's solvable. If it's not solvable, well, then it's not a problem. It's a reality. One of the things that I made years ago, and Lisa inspired me to go to the other room and get it, I made these beautiful letterpress cards. And on one side, it says problem. And what I did was I challenged the people in the event to write down the problem they'd been wrestling with, the hard thing, the thing that if they could solve it, so many things in their life would get better. And then I said, okay, hand it to the person sitting next to you, to that stranger sitting next to you. And on the other side of the card, it said solution. And the idea of the problem solution card was simple. If that person sitting next to you can write down something that's going to solve your problem, even though it's going to cause you a disruption, even though it might cause you to wonder about what happens after that, even though it might cause discomfort, Are you willing to do it? Because if you're not willing to do it, if that feeling inside of you before you even see what they wrote down is one of ambivalence, then I'm not really sure you have a problem. I think that you are embracing the fact that things aren't exactly right because you like leaning against it. Pressfield calls this resistance. Resistance is our fear of being wrong. Resistance is our fear of leaning into something that might not work. Resistance is our fear of change. And so, with that preamble, this rant continues because some of you, if you're still with me, want to change the game. You want to be leaders. You want to choose to do this work. So now I will ask all of you the following question. What do you make? Now, I'm not asking you how much money do you make. I'm not even asking you whether you make widgets or grow wheat. What I'm asking you is, on a good day, what happened because you went to work? And my hunch is that if your company can afford for you to be at an event like this, you probably aren't the person who is busy growing the wheat. You are probably somebody who has a position of more leverage than that. So what's a good day? Is a good day simply using your authority to tell other people what to do? I don't think so. A good day is a day you make change happen. That's what we make. We make change happen. And so the question I will ask you is, who are you seeking to change? What change are you seeking to make? Do you work internally to change the minds of your peers, your employees, your bosses? Do you work externally to change the minds of regulators or people in the market? Do you try to turn non-customers into customers? Do you try to turn customers who are struggling into customers who are thriving? These are important jobs. The job of making change happen. Now, if that's what you do for a living, everything else you do is in support of that. So one of the questions that came in for Lisa was about, over the last year, why has the number of Zoom calls so dramatically increased? And the reason, I think, is this: because managers are nervous that people working from home aren't really working. And so a Zoom call is a way of taking attendance. That what's happening is, if you are sitting in endless Zoom calls, someone is stealing from you your time, your initiative, and your ability to do your real job, which is to change things for the better. And what that means is that if you're going to do your job, you got to stop going to the meetings. And it is possible to do that without breaking giant rules and without getting fired. That what has to happen is we have to say to each other in community, oh, what's our job around here? If our job around here is to trust each other, to independently create change that happens while being in sync, let's figure out how to make every single meeting 10 minutes shorter. And let's figure out which meetings can be replaced by a shared Google Doc, which is most of them. And if you're going to go to a meeting, figure out why you went. Because if you're not there to change the minds of the other people in the meeting, have them send you a memo instead. Going to a meeting where you simply write down what is being said is a waste of your precious avocado time. That time that you're not going to get back. That moment when you could, in fact, be dealing with a problem that actually is looking for a solution. Not a guarantee. In fact, it might not work. But some of you at this point say, no, you know what? I would rather do what I'm told. You know what? I would rather embrace the safety of giving responsibility to my boss. And that's where we get to the division between responsibility and authority. Because if you work in any sort of institution, authority is well delineated. Everyone knows who the boss is. Everyone knows who the boss's boss is. You have an org chart. Your org chart is filled with squares. Why are they square? They're square because if someone leaves, you can just put another person who's square-shaped into the hole. But useful organizations, thrilling organizations, they don't have square-shaped org charts. They have jigsaw puzzles where every single person is a unique shape, where they are seeking people who want to be indispensable, who want to make a difference, who want to lean in to what is possible. So what I'm getting to here, halfway through, is the idea of enrollment. Are you enrolled in the journey? So I've been pioneering online learning for a long, long time. And here's what I discovered. It's really easy to sell video of people talking on almost any topic. Just go to Udemy. It's filled with courses of people talking at you. And most people who take a course like that don't finish it because there's no prize, there's no certificate, there's no accreditation. They feel good just because they paid the money and they watched some of the video, but they didn't learn very much. Because learning is different than education, because compliance doesn't get us to where we need to go. If we want to actually change the game through innovation, we have to enroll. I'm going over there. Do you want to come? That what it means to be enrolled is that you will be so frustrated at the lack of forward motion that you will act the same way as if the company forgot to send you a paycheck this week. Where is it? Where is it? That the point of every meeting is to figure out how are we going to move this forward. So is it going to happen suddenly all at once? Of course not. I was talking to Martha Beck the other day, and she told me this riff that was brilliant, which is if you are on a flight from New York to Helsinki and the plane veers half a degree every half hour, you will not feel it. But you will also not land in Helsinki. You will land in Rome. Because it's the gradual changes and shifts in our culture that end up leading to the long-term transformations that we seek. So I have very few tactics for you today. This isn't about tactics. You don't have a tactics problem. It was really clear from your responses to Lisa's talk. You don't have a tactics problem. You know what the tactics are. What you're asking is, where is the authority? Who will let me do this? How do I get my boss to say yes? That what people ask the most after one of my talks is, I'd love to do this kind of stuff, but my boss won't let me, which is an acknowledgement that we live in an industrial world, but it's also an honest appraisal of how afraid we are of responsibility. Because the thing is, companies make it really hard to get more authority. Authority is hard to find, but responsibility, they give out like candy. If you're willing to take responsibility and give away credit, you can do almost anything you want in an organization if it's in the spirit of where that organization is going. And so what I am begging you to do in this rant is first choose to decide that you want to change the game. Okay, great. Now what? Number one, choose your projects, and that will choose your future. You have a million things you can work on. You can watch Apple's live streaming Keynote. Why? Why would you waste time doing that? You could go to this update meeting. Oh, they could send you a memo. You could try to change this client or that coworker or this plant layout. Pick. Choose your projects. Choose your future. That's hard to do because no one taught us how to do that. That's difficult to do because maybe I'll pick the wrong one. It's better to let someone else take responsibility. And so we pick. Years ago, I saw DVDs coming along and I decided to be one of the leading creators of DVDs in the New York book publishing community. I was wrong. Years before that, or maybe years after that, I was building one of the biggest email companies in the world. This was before the World Wide Web. We were one of the early internet companies, and the World Wide Web came along. And I looked at the World Wide Web. Before almost anybody, I looked square at it and I said, it's never going to work. This is not going to work. There's no business model. It's slower than Prodigy, less fun than AOL. I'm away. I'm walking away. Choose your projects, choose your future. That one decision cost me $40 billion. Okay, that happened. Then what? The idea of changing the game is simple. Sometimes you change to the wrong game. Sometimes you play a game and you lose. That's okay. If you had tomorrow to live over again, would you? Because right now you're already organizing what your tomorrow is going to look like. And for most people, your tomorrow is going to look a lot like last month. It doesn't have to. What we have is the chance to develop these new habits and these new approaches. They involve seeing the world as it is, as opposed to insisting it be the way we want it to be. They involve enrolling in a journey to get to where we want to go. So for the first time in the Nordic countries, I am going to do something that I've done for thousands and thousands of people around the world. 1 second. I'm going to teach you how to juggle. Now, the thing about juggling, if you like juggling, if you've ever seen a juggler, is that jugglers are really good at catching the ball. And if you're a good person, you've probably spent a fair amount of time rooting for the juggler to not drop the ball. Because if the juggler drops the ball, well, they're not a very good juggler. So how do you learn how to juggle? Well, high performers like you, when I say, I'm going to teach you how to juggle, they grab a few balls and they start throwing them. And they're pretty good for about 8 seconds. And then one of the balls goes off course and they lunge to grab it because they don't want to fail. But because they're already over here, the next ball drops to the ground. It turns out juggling has nothing to do with catching. It just looks like it has to do with catching. Juggling has to do with throwing. So the way I teach people how to juggle is simple. We only use one ball. We throw it and we let it drop to the ground. We do that for 20 minutes. One ball, throw, drop, throw, drop, throw, drop. One ball, throwing and dropping. And we got good at throwing. And then we use our left hand. Throw, drop, 20 minutes. If you're willing to do that for 20 more minutes, now your throws are great. And if your throws are great, the catches take care of themselves. It took 40 minutes of getting comfortable with the ball dropping to the ground before you got good at throwing. And too often in this corporate world we live in, this industrialized world we live in, people spend all their time trying to catch because that's what your boss wants you to do, because that's what you got rewarded for. The very question, will this be on the test, which I know is an Americanism, but I have a hunch you've asked it as well, says, oh yeah, I have to go to this class, I have to go to this meeting, I have to go to this, because otherwise I will get in trouble. Let me pay attention the minimum amount just to get the prize. That is about catching. Instead of the relentless curiosity of saying, wait a minute, I am enrolled in this journey. I will show my work. I will be eager to tell people when I was wrong. And I will be just as eager to give away credit when I was right. Because if I do those two things relentlessly, I'll get more chances to do it again. And so when we talk about agility, which I asked Lisa about, agility doesn't mean you always land. It doesn't mean you're always right. Agility means that when you're wrong, you're still in the game. And we are living in crazy times. But one thing is certain. This is the most normal the world is ever going to be again. And so either you're going to become someone who is adroit and eager and enrolled in playing by these rules, or you're going to sign up to race to the bottom. Your motto is, you can pick anyone and we're anyone. Your motto is, yeah, we could do it a little cheaper. The problem with the race to the bottom is you might win, or worse, come in second. The alternative is to change your attitude, just you, and then persuade one person, and then persuade 3 people, and then persuade 5 people. Here on this call, there are thousands of you. Go find each other. Start a mastermind, meet every Friday, challenge them. Start a book group in your organization, just a few people in it. That's fine. Read Lisa's book, read The Practice by me, read Gary's book, right? There's plenty of people who want to describe these practices to you. But if you don't change your attitude, all the tactics in the world aren't going to help. I don't want to see a list of your successes. Resumes are a crock. I want to see a list of where, with good intent, with good effort, you failed. Where is your flexibility? Where is your agility? Where is your desire to play games? Years ago, I worked with Isaac Asimov. I used to be a game designer. And here's what we know about games. You can lose a game and you get to play again tomorrow. And we are super lucky, privileged. We are able to put food on the table and we have a roof over our head. And so now, this moment is a time to do work that matters for people who care. No one wants to get hustled, but all of us want to make something better. Thank you for this. Looking forward to talking to Lisa. Go make a ruckus, everybody. Hey, boss,
Seth, you killed it.
I want someone to play that music every time I walk into the room in real life. Really
I know. I'm going to give it to my kids and have them like do it when I'm, we're cooking dinner or something. Seth, that was awesome. Thank you. You killed it.
It was mostly a rant. It was a rant, but it was worth it.
No, it's not a rant at all. I have a lot of notes. So I'm very excited. By the way, I love the problem solution cards. One, because it's simple, but two, what a great focused exercise for people, right? We're really good with complaining about stuff, but when we have to articulate a problem and actually do it so simply, I bet it's hard for people to figure out. Like when you do that with groups, what are their struggles?
So the key point that I'm trying to make people understand is they already know the solution to the problem. They just don't like the solution to the problem. They don't like the solution because it comes with a cost, right? And so what I'm trying to do is I don't want them to see what the person wrote down on the other side. I just want them to know that there is a solution and they're not going to like it, because the minute they look at the other side, they can come up with 100 reasons why that's not the solution. And so my problem is it's very hot and sticky and difficult to live in Houston. Well, the solution is move.
Yeah. They don't like that.
They'd rather complain about how hot and sticky it is in Houston.
Well, okay, so this is exactly. So let's talk about human behavior, because you're really good with this. So I think the people, they say they want to change, but I'm not really so sure because of this issue of change is hard. And there's this element of fear. Right. I think so much of it is fear, like you said. So help me as someone who, if I'm listening here, is more risk averse. How do I start to take this risk and eliminate the fear? I want to get comfortable, and I'm not comfortable right now.
That's a great way to start. It's all about our narrative. Have you ever gone surfing? Have you ever skied? Right? Have you ever skied? Have you ever played tennis? Have you ever done anything where the opponent or the conditions are part of the point? That a guy, or surfing champion, built in California a ranch, and not at the ocean, and he flooded this farm 1 foot deep and put a train track in. And on the train is a snowplow. And he drives the train with the snowplow, and it makes a perfect wave. It's perfect every single time, and it's identical. And then he built bleachers, and they can do surfing there where it's the same every time, which means you can compare one surfer to the other more fairly. And most surfers, when they hear about this, want to try it, but most surfers don't want to do it manually. Is that the ocean is different every time. The point of skiing is that the slopes are different. The point of tennis is you're playing against the human, not against the backboard. Playing against the backboard is sort of dull. And so we deal with, quote, risk all the time because it's thrilling. If it wasn't, if we had to eat macaroni and cheese 3 times a day, people would hate that. So the question is, when did you get indoctrinated to believe that work was supposed to be brain dead boring and that you were doing nothing but complying with your boss? Charlie Chaplin made a movie about that 100 years ago, that the idea of being on the assembly line is mind-numbing. Don't do that. But if you think about work like surfing, like skiing, like tennis, like mahjong, like whatever thing you like to do, now you don't have to persuade yourself, because guess what? You're not the main shareholder at Nokia. Therefore, you're not the one who's taking the big risk. Your career will be fine. You will not become unemployed simply because you are in the business of making change happen.
Well, what's so funny is that people like consistency, but at the same time, what they find thrilling is something new and different, right? So we have there's this gap, like you said. Now, here's what's coming in on Slido, and this is very typical, right? So everyone, of course, is saying, well, I'd love to change, but my boss, it's my boss that won't let me. My boss says, this is how we've always done it. So we can't change. It won't be efficient. So how do they come up against that? Right. Yeah. It's my boss.
So my boss won't let me question is key, because you're going to your boss and saying, I want to do this wacky thing. And if it works, I'll get the credit. And if it fails, you'll take the blame. Okay. Why would any boss say yes to that? You wouldn't say yes to that. The secret is to do very small things without permission. And when they fail, take responsibility. And when they succeed, give away credit. So in my example, it was Christmas Day. I worked at a software company in 1983, and I don't do anything on Christmas anyway. So I went in to answer the phones. And
Okay.
no one who called in that day expected a human being would answer at this computer game company. But there I was answering the phones for 8 hours. And it was thrilling because for the next 6 months at any meeting where someone talked about our users and what they felt, I could say, well, when I answered the phone, blah, 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 blah. And the consumers benefited, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't have a policy change. I just engaged in the market. That there are countless small ways that we can experiment, that we can put things into the world, that we can discover what works and what doesn't. And then we can go back to the boss and say, thank you. You should hear about this because it's really useful. And that requires us taking responsibility. And here's my challenge to people, whether you're in a Nordic country or whether you're in Spain, I don't care where you are. Tell me somebody, one human being who did small, beneficial, brave acts, took responsibility, gave away credit, and got fired for it. I can't think of it.
And got fired. I didn't think you were going there. All right. So this is interesting. You brought up the whole responsibility versus authority. So we are great with responsibility because we think that's going to get us more. But taking authority, you said, is small steps, right? So tell me either an example where you saw someone taking these small steps and it worked, or what are some tricks to get me to start taking these small steps?
So here's an example at a big company.
Yeah.
A woman I know, this wasn't at Colgate or at Procter & Gamble. It was a third-rate packaged goods company. And she figured out how to get them into the toothpaste business. And she didn't go have a meeting with the chairman of the board and say, I need $100 million to get into the toothpaste business. She went to lunch with one person. And then she had a meeting with 2 people. And then she talked to 6 people. And none of the time that she's doing this was it her job to invent a new toothpaste. But a year later, it's a $100 million brand because you don't do this by decree. And if you think about how big companies actually start doing new things, it's almost never that McKinsey had a meeting with the CEO and then they did a new thing. What happens is along the way, lots of people either said no or lots of people said yes, but your job, because you have the flexibility to not be on the assembly line, your job is to make change. You don't realize it, but it is. And if that's your job, how do you change one person? How do you change 3 people? How do you begin to pilot stuff? How do you interact with people? That is how change occurs in every organization that I've seen. I can't think of a time, and I've worked with so many companies, whether it's Nokia or Microsoft or AOL or Prodigy or my companies, where technology changed and the people there just blinked and then they're gone.
Well,
and you don't want to blink.
How you break it down is so cool, Seth, because it's, change can be small, right? It's kind of like the single drop of water that turns into so I like that idea because that will get people to embrace it more. But you said something that was interesting too. You said, if you choose your projects, you choose your future. I love that. So of course, my first reaction is people are going to say, well, I wish I could choose my projects, but my boss tells me my projects, right? So is this about learning to say no more, or what is it? How can I choose?
Okay. So, when you talk to people in the music business, they say I'm in the music business, when actually they're in the filing business or the lawsuit business. When you talk to people, you know what I mean?
I do.
The thing you work on is different than what you do all day. And your boss needs to give you projects. That part's true. But within any given thing you are working on, what is your role? Who are you changing? How do you approach it? What way forward? You have coworkers who, when they're working on something similar than you, take twice as long. And there are other ones who take half as long. What's the difference? Well, it's about enrollment. It's about trust. It's not about authority. It's about, if I ring somebody up because I have a supply chain problem, do they put me to the front of the line? Why did that happen? Right? We are all doing this work that cannot be easily bullet pointed, because if it could, we'd have a computer doing it instead of you. that your
Yes.
job is to figure out which parts of the project do you stand for. And that is your future. When you lean into, when I was in business school, some people came to case study classes with spreadsheets, 10, 12 pages of spreadsheets.
I remember.
I came to class with one insight about a human, and I decided that that would be my brand. And no professor who wanted a spreadsheet would call on me because they know I didn't have one.
And you passed the class, I assume. You passed.
I did okay, right? Because the professor needed somebody who would have that kind of insight.
That's right.
And the professor also needed someone who had the spreadsheet. Which kind of person do you want to be?
So, all right, another thing I loved that you said, I like that so many people they're bound or they have this fear because of the org chart. But the idea is more to have a team more like a jigsaw puzzle. And it reminded me of something, I think that's so smart, Seth. It reminded me of something someone told me, which is, our job is not to be the best at what we do. It's to be the only one that does what we do. And so, you're inspiring me around, it's not about getting stuff done or being the best at it, but finding what's unique. So, help me understand if I want to create more of a jigsaw puzzle at my company, what are some of the skills that I really need to have on my team to make that happen?
Okay, so talent and skill are different. Most people have no talent. You're born naked and afraid and unable to speak. Those are your talents. You have skills. Skills are choices, and there are different kinds of skills. How many words per minute can you type? Can you juggle? These are skills. But you know what else is a skill? Empathy is a skill. Patience is a skill. Being able to ask good questions is a skill. And so the way we become a linchpin is by developing real skills. Some people call them soft skills. Real skills are the things that we would want in a coworker, a boss, a spouse, whatever. We want people who are honest and funny and insightful and hardworking and enrolled and all the other things. So pick a subset of those and say, I could be better at this. I could be a little better at one of these things every day until finally, and it might only take 3 weeks, you're the best on the whole team at that thing. What is that thing? Go get really good at that skill, and then you can add another one. But no one needs someone who's well-rounded in an institution where we can pick from lots of folks. Think about the old Mission Impossible movies. Oh, I need the safe cracker. Oh, I need the demolitions expert. Which one are you? Right? What are we going to pick for you? And I'll give you one last rant on this, and then we'll see if there are any more questions. But I gave a talk to 40 really high-performing, privileged summer interns. And they had gotten there because their parents and everything else. And I said, all right, you've been working together for 3 weeks. I'm giving everybody a card. What I want you to do is this. Warren Buffett just called, and he's putting together an extraordinary team of 4 people with a multi-million-dollar budget to launch a new project. You're on the team, and you get to pick which 3 people from these 40 you want to be on the team with you. Go ahead and write down the 3 names. And there's all this nervousness in the room. I said, don't worry, no one will know what you're writing down. All right, they write it down. I say, I don't want to know what you wrote down. Here's what I want to know. Do you think anybody wrote down your name? Do you think some people in this room had their name written down by more than one person?
Wow.
If you're being honest, you know the answer to those 2 questions.
That's right.
And so my question to you is, what would you have to do to yourself, to your posture, to your enrollment around change to be one of the 3 people? Because that is completely up to us. It's not up to our boss.
So, Seth, I really like this because it is these soft skills that so many of us, we minimize them, right? In fact, I like talking about them as power skills, to your point, which is you can be the smartest subject matter expert, but if you're not empathetic or collaborative, to your point, that's what really gets people to come on board and enroll with you, right? Yeah. So, last few seconds here, any last minute advice for the audience here? People are asking, what's the one thing I need to do next, Seth?
You need to commit to a practice. That's it. If you don't commit to a practice, you're never going to learn how to juggle. You can't measure yourself by what happens tomorrow because you've tried this before. Mm-hmm. But if you commit to the practice, to the idea that this is a regular thing, that's why I've written 8,500 blog posts in a row. Not because tomorrow I'm going to have the best thing I ever wrote, but because tomorrow is going to be Friday. And that's the passion. That's the commitment. You have a practice of changing the game.
Seth, you're amazing. And I can't wait for you to teach me how to juggle. I'm looking forward to it.
That's a promise. Thanks.
Thanks for today.